Now as for this video, here's another. See here we have a UFO hovering over my home city. It does a bit of aerobatics, and then it shoots off someplace else. There's just one tiny problem. I made this. That's right. Using 3D modeling and animation software combined with special effects and composition tools, I managed to put together a UFO video of my very own. If I can do this, so can others. The creationist is a little too gullible of things he wants to believe in for his own safety.
Now that's denial.
This is another instance of psychological projection. Also, it is not denial when you take into account my statements a moment ago.
Of course, one could always believe that hats can fly.
Appeals to ridicule are nothing new.
It's certainly not faith-based, like evolutionism.
Using terms like evolutionism only serves to make the creationist look insane. Still, we can expect this particular creationist to ignore this and continue doing it anyway. Thinks the false dichotomy among other fallacies is a valid argument.
Well, you swallowed the divine dichotomy.
Now we've moved on to a red herring. Is that the divine dichotomy that states that evolutionism is a denial of the existence of God? It is a false dichotomy in itself because it assumes the acceptance of the theory of evolution is incompatible with a belief in any gods. Many theists believe in the existence of God while also accepting reality around them. They are not insane, and they daily prove that they are capable of accepting reality. Evolution and religion are not mutually exclusive. It is only creationists who claim otherwise.
Because of evolutionism, you see, you've become brainwashed.
Creationists often like to claim that people who disagree with them are brainwashed when this is simply not the case. And for the creationist to claim that I am brainwashed when the creationist believes that UFOs come from Satan is not only poorly veiled projection, but it also demonstrates that the creationist is insane.
That's why what you claim is contradiction is actually your own personal elimination of all possibilities outside your exclusivist worldview.
I don't eliminate possibilities, unlike the creationist. For instance, I accept the vast biodiversity of life has come about through the process of natural selection and genetic drift. The creationist does not. I accept that there are unexplained things in the universe that we will still have to seek an explanation for, and I can do so without invoking the magic of the supernatural. I can accept that the Earth is so old that 6,000 years is less than 0.014% of the time that truly has elapsed on the Earth. And I can accept that other people will have a religious belief even while I lack such beliefs myself. I also accept that UFOs can be man-made objects that are simply not known among the general populations of the Earth. Creationists accept none of these things, as this creationist has already demonstrated and continues to demonstrate even in his own response to myself. And this does not eliminate the fact that the creationist does believe that the false dichotomy is a valid argument, as he has demonstrated here in claiming that UFOs either come from Satan or from extraterrestrials. So claiming that I am an exclusivist is simply yet another instance of projection.
And there's a term for that. We call it being willfully ignorant.
Even more projection. The creationist often uses this tactic in an attempt to divert attention away from how poor his own arguments are, and attempt to discredit his opponents instead of addressing the actual arguments themselves.
And of course, ignorance means not knowing.
Ignorance is not knowing, alright. Such as not knowing the correct terminology for isochron, dating, not isometric, superposition, not supposition, aquifers, not aquifers, and accelerator-based mass spectrometry, not mass spectronomy. The creationist has made all of these mistakes above, yet continues in his arrogant presumption that he somehow knows more than the people who have dedicated their lives to their individual fields of research. Has no apparent scientific qualifications, yet he feels qualified to criticize science itself.
Well, here's the evolutionist game of create your own goalpost and then move it.
That would be the creationist game, actually. Note also that this is yet another red herring. Let's haul the creationist back to the subject at hand, shall we? We are talking about how the creationist has no apparent scientific qualifications, while he feels he knows more than the scientists who do have the requisite qualifications and who have put in the time and effort to learn the knowledge and processes needed to gain these qualifications in the first place. In response to my pointing out this obvious fact, the creationist accuses me of moving the goalposts and engages in diversionary tactics. Once again, the creationist has no apparent scientific qualifications, yet he feels qualified to criticize science itself.
Such as the idea that because someone doesn't have a degree in a particular field of science or some field of science, then they're unqualified to discuss science.
Anyone can discuss science all they want. However, to be taken seriously, they should know what they're talking about. Usually, this is done by studying the requisite subjects in which they wish to discuss. The creationist has demonstrated that he does not have the requisite knowledge. This is further highlighted in that the creationist does not know the difference between discussing science and attacking the scientific method itself in relation to the theory of evolution, conflating it with the Big Bang Theory and abiogenesis, as well as conflating all of these sciences with the atheist position that states a lack of a belief in a religious deity. None of these things have anything to do with each other. Conflating these subjects is the clearest indicator that one does not know what they are talking about. I would expect that if someone wishes to use arguments along these lines, that they should at the very least demonstrate that they have studied the necessary fields of science that they are attacking in this way, or they are going to find themselves rightfully ridiculed by those people who have taken the time and trouble to study the requisite fields that they work in. Claiming that the extant dodos are not degree educated as if to say that they would need qualifications to make their points, and then to make the statement that
the idea that because someone does not have a degree in the field of science means they're unqualified to discuss science is moving the goalposts.
It's hypocritical, to say the least.
Obviously I said something you didn't like, or you wouldn't be responding to my video.
Could it simply be the fact that lying for one's belief systems is distasteful and unacceptable to those of us who are intellectually honest? No, that couldn't possibly be it, could it?
That must be worth your time.
Not really, no. However, the creationist arguments need to be addressed, and this was the purpose of my video responses.
But you're not the only one. Paleontology researcher Dr. Per Alberg and microbiologist Dr. Mark Amick Peake also felt I was worth their time.
Somehow I find this difficult to believe given that the creationist has so obviously lied about a great many other things. Scientists of the caliber of the two stated just a moment ago are not going to waste their time on creationist lunatics like this one when they have actual scientific work to be getting on with. And with the ridiculousness of this creationist's arguments as can be seen on all of his videos, it is more than likely that if these two researchers did debate this creationist, he would have been eviscerated by their arguments. So in that case he would simply revise history and claim that he defeated them in debate. Reality will of course tell a very different story. And who will we believe? A pair of researchers who dedicate their lives to studying and adding to the collective pool of human knowledge? Or a creationist who cannot even tell the difference between a real UFO and a fake one? As fallacious arguments for biblical history.
Oops! The majority of secular historians believe Jesus was a historical character.
This claim of the creationists remains unsourced. Asserting something like this without providing evidence that this is so is speculative, and to claim otherwise is intellectually dishonest. While it is possible that someone who has similar characteristics to the man named Jesus may well have existed, there are no actual records for this fact. The period of time was well documented among many areas of the world, including the Roman Empire. The Jews and the Gentiles would have maintained records as well. For the only source of this Jesus character to be the Bible is a clear indicator that the embellishments made within the Bible are simply nothing more than storytelling. There is no evidence of any of this individual's miracles. I suspect the creationist believes that Jesus was a white man who spoke English and was a Caucasian, given how strongly he defends his King James Bible, which was written by a man who did believe that Jesus was a white man who spoke English. Any other view at that point in history was intolerable. Anyone who even takes time to think about this for a second knows that this is completely absurd. Any other claims that Jesus walked on water, healed the sick, performed miracles and resurrected before ascending bodily to a heaven that we know is not in space or above the planet are not based on evidence. Evidence is required for sane people to accept any claim.